Chapter 11. Nell Gwyn. A few hours before, at around 11 in the evening, Susan and her hen-night pals were almost the last to leave the marquee. They were in a good mood and hardly had to act their parts as they pushed and shoved each other and giggled their way to their cars parked by the canal. They hugged the bride-to-be, wished her good luck on Saturday, said their farewells and drove off into the night, all except for Susan. She sat in Lindsay's car and tried to phone John's mobile without success. "No frigging battery again," she said to herself, throwing the now useless instrument onto the back seat. "Oh well, let's head for home," she thought as she put her key in the ignition. "Never mind, I'll see him tomorrow. Him and his cute—" There was a tap on the driver's side window and a face so close it was almost touching the glass. "Jesus Christ, you scared me half to death." It was a woman's face wearing a white linen cap, a cloak and a friendly smile, so she opened the window. "You made me jump." "Sorry, didn't mean to. I wonder if you can help me. I'm a bit lost. I'm looking for Brian Smith." "No, that's not right. I can't see," she said, trying to read from a crumpled piece of paper. Susan opened the passenger door. "Get in, you'll be able to read it in here." "Thanks ever so much, that's better. Now look, it's not Smith, it's Smythe. Brian Smythe. Do you know him?" "No." "Sorry, I just thought I'd ask. I don't know what else to do. I'm supposed to meet him here by the canal. Him and his friends are having a stag night on a barge called Nancy. I think it's there. You can just see it. Only the name's all faded and there is no one there." Susan peered through the darkness in the direction her companion was pointing. She could just make out the barge and the dark silhouette of a huge man, also in a cloak, standing by it. "Who's that?" "Oh, that's all right. That's my boyfriend. My name's Ellie Green. Ellie is short for Eleanor. At school they called me Nell, Nell Green, and that ended up as Nell Gwyn. So when I started my own business, I stuck with the name. Look, have some of me cards. Give them to your friends." She gave Susan a whole pack of visiting cards which bore the message, "Gorillograms, nanograms, a policewoman, a fireman, or why not have the best, a Nell Gwyn-nogram." Beneath this was printed a mobile telephone number. "That's me," she said proudly. "This lot asked for Nell Gwyn and they're going to get her. This is my outfit. I've got all the assets as well as the oranges, if you know what I mean." She giggled like a machine gun. "Would you like an orange? What's your name, love?" "Susan." "Go on, have one. I've got plenty." "Thank you," said Susan, taking the orange and the cards. "But you'll have to excuse me. I'm tired and I have to drive home now. I'm sorry, I don't know where your friends are." "They're not friends. Good job and all. Snotty load of upper-class dickheads, if they're anything like this Smythe bloke. I've a good mind to go home. It makes no odds to me. I've got me money. Everyone has to pay up front." She got out of the car and shouted across to her boyfriend. "What do you reckon? We've been here 20 minutes. Shall we leave it?" "Yeah." "He don't say much, but he's a lovely man. Bye." Susan tried to see what her lovely man looked like, but all she had was a rear view of them both as they walked off arm in arm across the now deserted field, he carrying her basket of oranges and she with her ample posterior and ample everything else. "Look at the time," thought Susan. "Lindsay will be wondering where I am. With my supper all ready too. I'm so hungry, but I'll be there in a few minutes." She started the car, attempted to drive away, and the wheels promptly sank into the soft mud. She tried second gear, third gear, reversing. With lack of care born out of tiredness and frustration, she was doing these manoeuvres without a safety belt, which resulted in her being thrown forward. The top of the steering wheel collided with her neck and whacked her windpipe. "Ouch, that really hurt," she tried to say, but could only manage a whisper. "My bloody voice has gone," she thought. "Now what am I going to do?" She ripped open the orange and sucked the juice to try and relieve her throat. She tried to speak, but still no sound came. "I'll have to walk to the road and hope a taxi comes by, or walk home." A huge four-wheel drive estate car with massive tyres came bouncing across the field and came to a violent halt by the canal a few metres in front of her. 9 prosperous-looking young men piled noisily out of the doors, carrying bottles and glasses. "That thing could give me a tow," she thought. "Anyway, there's enough of them to push me out easily." She peered through the gloom and could just see them carrying, with great hilarity, one of their companions horizontally on their shoulders from the estate car across the grass and into the barge. Her throat was less painful now, but she could still only manage a squeaky whisper. "I'll have to do sign language and keep pointing at the car," she thought. She began looking around her for some writing materials. She found a pen in the glove compartment, but nothing to write on but the packet of Nell Gwyn's visiting cards. She wrote, "Please give my car a push," on one of them, put the other cards and her keys into her handbag and went to meet them. She waved to get their attention. "Hello," she mouthed silently, pointing at her tonsils. "I've lost my voice." "She's arrived, gentlemen." "Welcome, fair maiden," said a young man in a crumpled dinner jacket and a bow tie hanging down his chest. He seemed to be their leader. "I'm sorry we're late. Thank you for waiting." He swayed slightly, and so did his companions, who quickly surrounded her. They were holding various bottles and glasses and stared at her with obvious delight. The young man spoke again, slurring his speech and staggering a little. "My name's Brian Smythe, something or other. Never mind that. I'm the one who called you and sent you the money. You're Nell Gwyn, of course." Susan shook her head and mouthed, "No, I'm not. I just want your help." He didn't seem to understand or couldn't be bothered, so she handed him the card with her message written on it. He took the card from her, but only looked at the printed side and threw it on the ground. "That's right, I know, Nell Gwyn. We're all ready for you." Susan shook her head again, turned back towards the car, and was immediately overtaken by the mob of young men who carried her off to the barge. They stood her on her feet by the gangplank and grouped round her in a tight circle. She glared at them defiantly, red-faced and panting. "I like the green dress," said one of her captors, "but you don't look much like Nell Gwyn to me, and where are your oranges?" "Absolutely gorgeous," said another upper-class voice. "Bloody marvellous piece of totty," said another. "Very fit for the purpose." "Yes," said Brian Smythe. "I'm sorry you've lost your voice. Have a little drinky. How about some champagne?" Susan shook her head. "No? Ah, well, you don't need your voice for what we want you to do." His companions began to snigger. Susan froze with terror. This must have shown in her face, because the leader spoke again. "Oh no, don't worry, not with us, with Giles, our man in the boat, the groom. He's getting married on Saturday, and this is probably his last chance of freedom and happiness. So this is where you come in. You provide him with enough happiness and we'll pay you double. All aboard! Who's coming aboard?" he shouted as they all climbed onto the barge and dragged Susan with them. They opened the door to the cabin at the rear of the boat, pushed her inside and turned the key in the lock. There was just enough light to make out her surroundings. The space contained 2 bunk beds. One of these was occupied by another young man who was asleep or in a drunken stupor. He, or his companions, had removed his shoes and spread his dinner jacket over him as a blanket. On the other bunk was a pile of unopened cans of lager. She looked around the cabin for means of escape. There was a porthole on the other side, and each was covered with a small curtain. She drew one aside, saw grinning faces staring at her, and hastily put it back again. The porthole on the opposite wall faced dry land, but this, like the one on the other side, was too narrow to escape through. Her fear had largely subsided now, but what remained was anger and determination. She was thinking clearly and rapidly. "What do I do now?" she asked herself. She looked at her unwanted companion. "I'm not scared of him. He's another waste of space. I'm sorry for the bride, though. Who'd want to marry him? Or any of his useless friends, for that matter, however much money they've got." She looked towards the porthole again. "Lindsay, she's bound to come looking for me, only I've got her car. She'll probably get a taxi. I know she won't call the police, well, not for a while anyway." She opened her handbag. "I suppose I could write a message on something. Hell, I haven't even got a lipstick. I could have written on the glass with that. What about Nell Gwyn's cards? I can write on those. Oh, no, I haven't bought a bloody pen." She heard the boat's engine starting up, and amidst all the laughing and shouting outside she could hear Brian Smythe giving orders. "Let's get under way! Cast off fore and aft!" Susan could feel the barge moving, and then saw grass and weeds passing by outside. "I'd better do something quick," she thought. She opened the porthole and threw handfuls of Nell Gwyn's cards onto the canal bank.